That meat pie you grab at the footy. The one you pull from the freezer at Woolies on a Wednesday night. The one wrapped in that iconic packaging you've trusted your entire life. There's a very good chance the filling inside contains less actual beef than a tin of dog food. I'm not being dramatic. Under Australian food standards, a meat pie only needs to contain 25% meat. And that word meat, that includes fat, connective tissue, and offcuts that would never make it onto a butcher's counter. The pie industry has spent decades hiding behind nostalgia and AFL sponsorships, while quietly gutting the recipe your grandfather loved. Today, we're exposing 5 pie brands you need to stop buying, and 5 that are actually worth your money. I spent 3 weeks going through every pie brand at Coles and Woolies, reading the actual ingredient lists, tracking the corporate ownership structures behind the packaging, and doing something very few people do. I weighed the filling against the pastry on 5 of the most popular supermarket pies. The results were genuinely depressing. I also spoke to a former commercial pie production worker who described exactly how these things are made at scale. This isn't opinion. This is ingredient labels, food standards documents, and maths. There's something almost sacred about the Australian meat pie. It's the food of the SCG Hill, the country show, the servo on a cold morning. It's been part of this country's food identity since the 1800s. Your nan's pie had beef, onion, gravy, and pastry. That's it. 4 ingredients you could name without squinting at a label. What's sitting in the freezer section of every Woolies and Coles today is a completely different product. Most commercial pies contain textured vegetable protein, that's soy, bulking out the meat content. They contain flavor enhancers disguised as natural flavors. They contain thickeners, preservatives, and enough sodium to put a small horse in cardiac arrest. Australian food standards allow a product to be called a meat pie with as little as 25% meat content, and that measurement is taken before cooking, when the meat weighs more. After baking, the real meat percentage drops further. In the EU, minimum meat content requirements for labelled meat products are significantly stricter. Here, the regulators have given the industry almost complete freedom to fill your pie with whatever's cheapest. The 5 to never buy. Number 5. Sargents pies. Sargents has been in Australian pie tins since 1891. Over 130 years of heritage. The brand still leans heavily on that history. The packaging, the old school font, the suggestion of a family bakery that's been doing this forever. But here's what Sargents won't tell you on the front of the box. The brand is owned by George Weston Foods, which is itself owned by Associated British Foods, a British multinational with annual revenue of over £17 billion. Not a local baker, a British conglomerate. $4.50 for a twin pack at Woolies. Sargents positions itself as everyday affordable. And it is affordable. The question is, what you're getting for that money. The ingredient list tells you immediately. After water and wheat flour comes beef. But beef is the 3rd ingredient. That's your protein source coming in behind water and pastry flour. The gravy component includes flavor enhancers 627 and 631, both derived from yeast extract and used to boost savory flavor artificially. The sodium content is around 650 milligrams per pie. That's roughly 28% of your daily recommended maximum from a single pie, before you've had anything else that day. The meat itself is listed as beef with a minimum 23% meat content in the filling. The Australian standard requires 25% across the whole product. Technically legal. But you're buying a pie with less than a quarter actual beef, sold under 130 years of Australian heritage branding, with profits flowing directly to a British corporation. The nostalgia is real. The quality isn't. Number 4. Mrs. Max. Mrs. Max is everywhere. Servos, supermarkets, school canteens. The red and yellow packaging has been on Australian pie warmers since the 1950s. originally from Western Australia. It feels like a fair dinkum Aussie brand. It's not. Mrs. Mac's is also owned by George Weston Foods, the same British multinational that owns Sargents. So, when you're choosing between these two competing brands in the pie warmer at your local servo, you're actually choosing between two products owned by the same overseas parent company. The competition is a marketing illusion. $2.80 for a single pie at Coles. The price alone should raise questions. The ingredient list for a standard Mrs. Mac's beef and gravy pie includes beef at a minimum 23% meat content, textured soy protein, flavor enhancers 627 and 631, vegetable gums 415 and 412, and preservative 220, sulfur dioxide, which is linked to asthma and allergic reactions in sensitive individuals. Sulfur dioxide is used as a preservative to extend shelf life in the filling. People with sulfite sensitivity can have genuine respiratory reactions, and most buying a pie from a servo warmer have no idea it's in there, because servo pies don't come with an ingredient list on the wrapper. At $2.8 a pie, you're not paying for quality beef. You're paying for soy protein bulked out with flavor enhancers and a brand name that's been on Australian pie warmers so long that nobody questions it anymore. Number 3. Coles and Woolworths home brand pies. Let's address both at once because the story is identical. Coles bakery beef pies and Woolworths home brand equivalents are contract manufactured frozen pies designed to hit one target: the lowest possible price point at acceptable margins for the supermarket. Nothing else matters in that calculation. Not flavor, not meat quality, not your health. At around $3 for a 2-pack, these represent the absolute floor of the Australian pie market. The meat content hovers at the legal minimum. Textured vegetable protein pads the filling. The pastry contains palm oil. And here's the part that genuinely bothers me. The ingredient list on both products contains the phrase natural flavour, which under Australian food standards can mean almost anything. It can mean MSG derivatives. It can mean yeast extracts. It can mean chemical compounds that mimic the taste of beef without containing any beef. The label doesn't have to tell you which. Both supermarkets have been under ACCC scrutiny over labelling practices. Both make enormous margins selling their own branded products. And both use their buying power to source the cheapest possible beef trim from the cheapest available suppliers. You're not buying a pie. You're buying a commodity product designed to profit the duopoly, disguised as food. Number 2. 4-20 Classic. Right, this one is going to hurt some people. 4-20 is as Australian as it gets. The AFL, the MCG, the iconic blue tin. Since 1947, generations of Australians have had their first 4-20 at the footy. It's practically a cultural institution, and that's exactly why this reveal matters. 4-20 is owned by Paddy's Foods, which has passed through various ownership structures over the years, including periods under Pacific Equity Partners, a private equity firm. When private equity gets involved in a food brand, the question is never, how do we improve the product? It's always, how do we improve the margin? The answer, in pie manufacturing, is always the same. Less meat, more fillers, more flavor enhancers to compensate. The 4-20 Classic contains beef at a minimum 25% meat content, hitting the legal floor exactly. The filling contains textured soy protein. It contains flavor enhancers 627 and 631. Sodium sits at around 720 milligrams per pie, nearly a third of your daily maximum. The pastry contains canola oil and soy lecithin. The marketing says Australian beef. The ingredient list says soy protein, flavor enhancers, and preservatives. You're paying around $5.50 for a 2-pack at Woolies. That's $2.75. A pie for the product that defines Australian pie culture, made to the legal minimum meat standard, loaded with textured soy. The pie your grandfather ate at the MCG in 1965 had nothing to do with this product. That's the betrayal. Number 1. McCain Family Pies. McCain is a Canadian multinational operating across over 160 countries. They make frozen chips, they make frozen meals, and they make frozen pies sold in Australian supermarkets to families who trust the familiar name in the freezer aisle. McCain Family Beef Pies are marketed as convenient family food, the kind of product parents grab during a busy week. Here's what should make every parent furious. McCain's beef pie contains beef at minimum 25%, legal flour, again, textured soy protein, natural flavour, maltodextrin, thickeners 1422 and 1442, modified starches, and colour 150C. Caramel colour produced using ammonium compounds. Caramel colour 150C has been flagged in research as potentially containing 4-methylimidazole, a compound classified as possibly carcinogenic. It's in the product to make the gravy look dark and rich. Real gravy gets its colour from properly browned meat. This gravy gets its colour from a chemical additive. The sodium content is among the highest of any supermarket pie at around 760 milligrams per serve. This is an overseas corporation selling Australians chemical-coloured, soy-padded frozen pies under a family marketing banner. At around $6 for a 4-pack, it looks like value. It's not. It's the most industrialised product on this list. Drop it in the comments right now. I read every single one. And stick around because the 5 I'm about to show you will completely change how you think about buying a pie. Here's the thing that ties all 5 of those brands together. This isn't 5 separate failures. It's one systemic problem. 2 companies, George Weston Foods, British-owned, and Paddy's Foods, dominate the retail pie market in Australia. Between them and the supermarket home brands, they control the vast majority of what's in every freezer aisle from Cairns to Fremantle. Australian food standards allow a meat pie to carry that name with just 25% meat, measured raw. The EU requires significantly higher minimum meat content for labelled meat products. Flavour enhancers, soy protein bulking, and sulfite preservatives are all completely legal and don't need to be flagged prominently on the packaging. The industry has spent decades lobbying against tighter standards, and the regulatory environment has let them. The result is that the iconic Australian meat pie, the thing we serve at the footy, the thing we feed our kids, the thing we hold up as a cultural symbol, has been quietly hollowed out. Less beef, more soy, more chemicals. Same nostalgia, same price, actually rising. And profits from the brands your family has trusted for generations flowing overseas to British and Canadian parent companies. The 5 that are actually real. 1. Garlow's Pies. Garlow's has been making pies out of Parramatta since 1977. Family-owned, Australian-owned, and they've won enough national pie awards to fill a trophy cabinet. Their chunky steak pie contains chunky diced beef, actual chunks you can see. Not mince, not textured soy, not mystery gravy. When you cut one open, it looks like something a person made, because it was. Available fresh from their stores and selected IGA and independent grocers. Around $6 to $7 for a single premium pie. Yes, it costs more than a 4.20. It also contains food, which is a reasonable trade-off. 2. Nate's Pies. Nate's is a Melbourne-based producer making properly filled pies with Australian beef and real ingredient lists you can actually read without a chemistry degree. They use no artificial colours, no textured soy protein, and no flavour enhancers. The filling tastes like beef because it is beef, properly seasoned with real ingredients. Available in selected independent grocers and delis across Victoria. Around $6 to $8 per pie, depending on variety, worth every cent. 3. Your local independent bakery. This one might feel like a cop-out, but stay with me. Every town in Australia has at least one independent bakery making fresh pies from scratch. The Aussie bakery pie tradition, the kind your nan bought, never died. It just got drowned out by supermarket marketing budgets. A fresh pie from a local bakery typically costs $5 to $8, contains real beef, is baked that morning, and the person behind the counter can tell you exactly what's in it. No preservatives because it doesn't need to last 6 months in a freezer. No flavor enhancers because the actual beef provides the flavor. Support your local bakery. Full stop. 4. Harry's Cafe de Wheels. Since 1938, the same spot near the Woolloomooloo Wharves, Harry's Tiger Pie, a meat pie topped with mushy peas, mashed potato and gravy, has been feeding Sydney for nearly 90 years. They still make their pies with real beef, proper pastry and zero interest in cost cutting. Multiple locations now across Sydney and Newcastle. Around $9 to $12 for a tiger pie, depending on location. Not cheap. An experience. If you're in Sydney and you've never had a Harry's pie, sort that out this weekend. 5. IGA Bakery, fresh pies. This one is accessible for most Australians. IGA stores with in-store bakeries produce fresh pies daily, typically with shorter ingredient lists and no need for the industrial preservatives that frozen pies require. Quality varies by store, but the fundamental difference is this. A fresh pie made this morning does not need sulfur dioxide to survive the next 6 months. Ask your IGA bakery team what goes in their pies. Most of them will tell you. Around $4 to $6 per pie. Genuinely better than anything from the freezer aisle. How to spot a real pie. Quick checklist. Before you grab your next pie, here's what to look for. Check the meat percentage. Any pie not stating at least 30% beef content is working close to the legal floor. Real pies have more meat, not less. And good producers advertise it. Read the filling ingredient list. If beef isn't the first or second ingredient after water, something else is padding the filling. Textured soy protein in a beef pie is a red flag. Look for flavor enhancers 627 and 631. These are present in almost every commercial pie as a substitute for actual flavor from quality meat. Their presence tells you the manufacturer doesn't trust their own beef to taste like beef. Check for sulfur dioxide, preservative 220. Its presence means the product is designed for long shelf life, not fresh eating. Sensitive individuals, particularly those with asthma, should avoid it entirely. Fresh beets frozen every time. A pie made today in a local bakery has no need for preservatives, artificial colors, or flavor enhancers. If you can choose fresh, always choose fresh. The next time you're standing in the pie warmer queue at the footy, or staring into the freezer aisle at Woolies, remember what you learned today. 4 and 20 isn't the pie your grandfather ate. Sargents and Mrs. Max are owned by the same British company. And the iconic Australian meat pie, one of this country's genuine cultural institutions, has been industrialized down to a product that's legally allowed to contain more soy than beef. Which brand shocked you the most? Are you still buying 4 and 20 at the MCG? Drop it in the comments, I want to know. And if this video changed how you think about what's actually in your food, hit that subscribe button because I've got more of these coming. There are industries in this country that have been hiding behind Australian nostalgia for decades. We're not done exposing them. Thanks for watching.